Well, Niebaum is an interesting case because he was quite knowledgeable about wine. He was a ship's captain, but he brought with him great wine, and he had a great wine library, which now has been donated to the University of California at Davis. And he became extremely wealthy as he became more mature. He was involved in the fur trade in Alaska, and even during those first years when Alaska was an American territory, no one knew much about it except him. And he went and really brought into the United States incredible shipments of furs and items, which made him one of the wealthiest men, certainly in California. So even though he was in a position of wealth that he could have bought any or all of the great Bordeaux first growths, I mean, he had that kind of wealth, he, at his wife's behest, wanted to stay closer to home. And even in those days, the talk about California's Napa Valley of being an extraordinary wine region, of course, even as early as 1840, some extraordinary wines were being produced here, and Robert Louis Stevenson, the great author, had written about them, and people were aware of it. And so Niebaum decided to not invest in a European vineyard, but rather in an American vineyard in California, in the Napa Valley. So he selected from the many areas he could choose this spring spa, which was owned by a Scottish gentleman named Watson, and it was called Inglenook, which means cozy corner. And he bought that, and also it was nestled right into the slope of this mountain, and he was extremely knowledgeable, and he understood that this area was the most fertile part of the Napa Valley, and to this day it's considered that. And he augmented the purchase with land on either side of it, and he made a big purchase of over 2,500 acres of land, of which much was mountain, but the slope of the mountain, known as the Rutherford Bench, was, of course, got the drainage of the waters coming from the mountain. And so just like what makes the Nile in Egypt so fertile is that inundation where the water comes and then leaves the highest quality of soils. And Niebaum began his desire to make not a wine just for everyone, but a premium luxury wine that could compete with the greatest wines of Europe. And he did just that. And in fact, in the big centennial of the turn of the century, 1900, of the wines that were sampled and in competition, Inglenook won many, many honors. And his nephew, of course, was the wonderful John Daniel, and John Daniel brought about the second golden age of Inglenook, during which time some of the greatest wines of his time were made. And we always talk of the famous 1941 Inglenook, which was listed as one of the 10 greatest wines ever made, and which our company is proud. We are in possession of 3 of those bottles. I suggested to my wife, after we had made the Godfather film, and I had, the first time in my life, a little money, I said, why don't we buy a summer house, a little cottage in the Napa Valley with maybe an acre of grapes, and our children will be able to be in the country, and every year we'll make wine for the family. So she thought that was a wonderful idea, and we came out here looking, and fortunately the real estate person who was showing us very small cottages said, you know, this isn't for you, but they're going to auction the Niebaum estate, which is part of the most beautiful wine estate in the Napa Valley. It used to be it's the home of the founder of Inglenook, and of course Inglenook by then had been sold to Ublin, but it's a chance for you to see it, if only to see it. You know, so we said, oh, we'd love to see it. We went to see it, and we were both astounded with its beauty, and the extraordinary piece of property. It had mountains, it had a lake, it had vineyards, it had a beautiful Queen Anne style home, which was the home of Gustave Niebaum, and Of course, by then it had been separated from the chateau here, but it had an easement, so I used to drive by the Inglenook, and I was heartbroken to see, number one, they weren't making wine in it anymore. Number two, it didn't have the name Inglenook anymore. And I became very motivated to see it be restored. And in fact, we made an offer to buy the Niebaum estate, but it was not accepted. We were not the winner. And after that, we both thought, my God, what a beautiful place that is. And we said, maybe we should look at bigger places. So we looked at many of the great estates that were on the market at that time, but nothing compared to the beauty and the grandeur of the Inglenook Estate. And I would go further to say I've been all over the world and I've seen wineries and wine estates, the greatest in the world, certainly in Bordeaux, in Tuscany, and there is no wine estate as beautiful as Inglenook anywhere in the world from what I have seen so far. And there are people who definitely agree, people from Bordeaux who agree. At any rate, that haunting fact that we had an opportunity to buy this extraordinary place, I didn't really have that much money in those days, but I guess I was credit worthy because The Godfather went on to be a big success. And I heard the rumor that the people who had bought the Niebaum estate really bought it, were financed by a company that was going to put 66-acre homes up on the mountain, and ran into trouble from the locality because of what was considered an agricultural reserve, and that they weren't permitted to just denude the mountain and put homes. And so I heard that, and I went to the people who had owned it, who were financed by that group that wanted to build the homes, and I said, I understand they can't build the homes, maybe they want to sell the property, and they said, yes, they do. And so we bought it, and just a few months before I went to the Philippines to make Apocalypse Now. So I bought it, I borrowed the money, quite honestly, and went off to make Apocalypse Now, knowing that when I would to return to California, we owned this beautiful Niebaum estate. The idea that it could be restored really was not just me alone, but really many people who had lived in the Napa Valley, and our family earned wonderful approval for step-by-step buying back the property as I could, despite on and off financial deprivations and challenges, until really I had bought back the entire Inglenook estate and owned everything for a while but the name. And then I was able to buy the name Inglenook from a company who had bought it from Uline, fortunately. And I don't know, about 10 years ago, 8 years ago, the entire constituted property was renamed Inglenook, which of course it always should be.